Welcome, welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And of course, today, as we do on Sundays, we're going back to the first chapter of Genesis and doing it with the Torah Temimah. That's what we're doing. And at this point, you can see a ghosted page. These are ghosts that you can see because the page was so thin, and when they copied it, it copied from the other side. There's a way to prevent that from happening, actually. There's a setting, but I didn't make the copies, and I'm grateful to have this. So I'll do the best I can trying to read with all these ghosts. At any rate, we read this verse, but we didn't have a chance to look at the Torah Temimah on it. So, Ehi rakia, etc. Let there be a rakia. This rakia, this firmament. Tanya, it is taught. We discussed this the last time, right? Relatively early source, contemporaneous with the Mishnah, which was edited prior to the year 200. Anshei Mishmar, the men of the watch. Hayumit anin b'chol yom. They would fast every day. Basheni, on the second day, Hayumit anin al mefarshe yamim, or mafrishe yamim, although there's not a yud here, so let's say mefarshe yamim. They would fast for the protection, we should understand, for those who go out on the sea, those who were taking sea voyages. Al Shem Shener Marbor, because on the second day of the week it states, Vayomer Elohim, God said, Yehi Rakia betoch hamayim, let there be a Rakia in the midst of the waters. And of course, that's because of that reference to water, that they would then fast for the people who were going out on the ocean or on the sea. And we are going to take a look at what Torah Temimah has to say about this. Let's find the place. Let's see. We're looking at Lamed Chet. I'm looking for Lamed Chet. So give me a moment to find it. Here we let's see. Sorry, I'm taking a moment here. Here it is. Oh, well, Lamed Zion, could it be? Yeah, sorry, it is Lamed Zion. Lamed Zion, forgive me. Here it is. Anshei Mishmar. So what are we talking about? These men of the watch, right? Inyanam Yadua. We are aware that what was involved was this. Shehem Shomrim Mishmeret HaKodesh. They would guard the sacred watch, Beveit HaMikdash, in the holy temple. Well, we're going to explain this a little bit better. You'll see. Umehem borarim anashim meyuchadim, and of these people, they would select certain people, certain men, sheyu shlochei kol Yisrael, that they would be emissaries or messengers of the entire Jewish people, the hakravat korbanot tzibur, regarding the offering of public offerings. So when it says the sacred watch, in other words, they would observe the offerings at the temple. And let's keep going a little bit more, V'nikraem Anshei Ma'amad, and they were also known as the people of Ma'amad. La'amod, of course, is to stand, right? People who were I wouldn't say standing, but of the group that is standing and observing. Al Shem She'omdim Al Korban. Here we go. This explains it, this term, because they would stand near the offering, B'sha'ah shenikrav, at the time that it was actually offered. Now, what I believe, as this is what I learned when I was actually at seminary, is this is sort of the beginnings of the prayer book and the service that we now to this very day observe. That is the mitzvah of praying 3 times a day, and then on Shabbat having the Musaf Amidah added, and that the Amidah, that silent devotion that we say, is actually corresponds to the moments when the Tamid offering, the daily offering, was brought. And the Musaf, of course, corresponds to the additional offering that was brought on the Shabbat, that Musaf Amidah. So that yes, it involves the prayers that we offer up and the meaning of those prayers, but it also represents a watch that's simply standing there, right, and being committed to devoting your time for this also has a certain benefit to it. At any rate, back in the days of the temple, because everything was going on in the temple and the service was so centralized, you had people living throughout the land of Israel who felt a connection to this and felt, in a sense, left out of what was going on in the temple every day in this beautiful, beautiful mitzvah that was taking place in offering up these sacrifices every day. And so what they did was they would designate certain individuals who would represent the community and go to the temple. And even though they couldn't go actually into the priestly courtyard, there was a balcony that overlooked that courtyard where you could observe everything that was going on. And my guess is that these people would stand on that balcony at the time when these offerings were brought. And because this was done on this regular basis, the people back in their communities would gather together at the same time and would be both spiritually and physically connected because they had members of their community actually at the temple. And they would recite psalms, etc., back in their communities, knowing full well that this was taking place at the identical moment that these offerings were being offered. And this connectedness and this practice continued. And once the temple was destroyed, even though there was no longer sacrifices, the custom and the practice of gathering together at these specific times continued, as I said, through today as to its significance. So there is this connectedness here, and this is the ma'amadot. He goes on to say, Baruch Halevi Epstein says, "V'iyeh lefanenu," and check ahead, right? The Parsha Pinchas, in the Parsha of Pinchas in the book of Numbers, and Parsha Pinchas is known especially for the specific offerings that were brought on every occasion, starting with the daily offering, then the monthly offering, Rosh Chodesh, and then, of course, daily offering, Shabbat, Rosh Chodesh, and then going through the various festivals of the year and the special offerings that were brought. That's all mentioned in Parshat Pinchas. So he's going to say, Baruch Perek Parshat Tamidim, at the beginning of the paragraph that talks about the Tamidim, the perpetual offerings. Vehem mitanim, these people that were gathering in the temple, who had this sacred task, mitanim, they would fast, umit palalim, and they would pray, al tzorchei bnei Yisrael, regarding the needs of the children of Israel, ushlomam, and their welfare. So consider that for a moment, this dynamic going on. Umash Amar, and what was said here, mitanin bechol yom, that they would fast every day. Lav dafka, it isn't exactly every day, bechol yom. It's not every day, mamash, actually. Ela barov yemei hashavua, but actually the majority of the days of the week, they would fast on these specific days. And he's going to tell you, Basheni, that would be on Monday, Bashlishi on Tuesday, Baravi'i on Wednesday, Uvachamishi and Thursday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday they would fast, and he'd say Iyen Ta'anit, Vide the Masechet Tractate Ta'anit, fast on page 26a. It talks about that in the Talmud. Uvachol Yemei Hashavua, and throughout the days of the week, Korin Batorah, they would read in the Torah the Maaseh Bereshit. They would read the creation narrative. Mishum, so that's chapter 1 essentially is what they would be reading. Mishum de bizchut hakarbanot, and the reason for doing this is on the merit of the offerings. Ha'olam mitkayem, the world, the universe endures, and of course there is a deep connection with how responsible we are for how the world continues to endure, even if, let's say, scientifically, it's in a very minute way, but the implications, as we know, with climate change and things like that, we know are actually start to be quite significant. On the other side of it, I think to myself, because my understanding is that every single one of us is also a temple, and that being concerned for the welfare of the community is something that has a profound, it's a way of saying that there is a profound implication in this behavior. At any rate, he says, Yen Ta'anit, look at the Tractate Ta'anit, you can check it out, page 27b. Umefaresh ta'amei hataniot, and it goes on to explain the reasons for these fasts. Ki basheni, why? Excuse me for 1 second. On Monday, on the second day of the week, hayu mitanin al mafrashei yamim. We just said, right, that they would fast for the welfare and the safety of those who go out on the seas. Sheya'avru b'shalom, that they should be able to go on this sea journey and they should pass through in safety, right? B'shalom. Mishum, and why? Mishum dichtiv bay, because regarding this, it says in the Genesis narrative, Yehi rakia b'toch hamayim. This is what we read, right? There'd be a firmament in the midst of the waters. Upiresh Rashi b'ta'anit, and Rashi in his commentary, an explanation of Tractate Ta'anit on page 27b, v'tzarich lahaskir, and one has to make mention, uleratzot, and to find favor, al hadabar, regarding this matter. In other words, that we supplicate and pray to God to make sure that people who journey in the ocean and on the seas are safe. Ad kan l'shano, that's the end of the quote from Rashi. So, uvashlishi, and on the third day, that is on Tuesday, hayu mitanin al yotzei drachim, they would then fast regarding wayfarers, people who are on journeys. Al shem shine'emar, and why? On that day, regarding in the text, it says, Yikavu hamayim, let the waters be divided, etc., v'tera eha yabasha, and let the dry land appear. So again, the waters and the potential danger of the waters, the land and the potential danger of journeying across the land. Klomar, that is to say, sheteheh hayabasha, that the dry land, re'uya, should be fit, leholchin, to those who traverse it. Shelo yiplu bepachatim, that they shouldn't fall into crevices or pits, velo yazuku mipnei chayot ra'ot, nor should they be injured or killed by means of wild animals. And of course, we also know about human beings and bandits and marauders and people like that, and thieves, etc. Uvarevi'i, and on Wednesday, mitanin al hatinokot, they would fast regarding infants, shelot ta'aleh askara letoch pihem, that they should not die from croup. Mishum dichtiv, and why? It says on that day, v'hayu l'ma'orot, that's the day the sun, moon, and stars are created. Judith, just let me finish this, and I'll be happy to take the question. Uchtiv, so that's the day sun, moon, and stars. Uchtiv ma'orot. This is the word, right? Ma'orot means luminaries, but notice there is no vav. Ma'orot, it's read as ma'orot, but there's no vav there. Chaser, it's without that vav, vavim. It has no vavim in it, right? No vav here, no vav there. Those are the two vavs. She'inyano, and the reason is that way you can read that word, lashon me'era uklala. It could be understood as ma'eret, right? Ma'eret, which has the meaning of destruction and curse. So, Judith, please.
I'm sorry. If they had a different, focus of their fast for each day,
Yes.
how long did they fast?
I imagine it was the day, that it was a day fast, that is starting. My guess is it would be in the morning. That I haven't read or recollect reading anything in terms about the length of the fast, but it could be a 24-hour fast, and they could maybe fast, break their fast at nighttime. But in all possibility, since it was so frequent, it was quite possible that it was like our minor fasts, which start at daybreak and end at nightfall. So they would have a very, very early breakfast, and then they would fast through the day with their prayers and watching all those procedures, and then they would break their fast at nightfall. And I'm
Okay.
I'm I'm hoping I'm answering your question, but
Yes.
those are the two possibilities. I mean, they were very disciplined, clearly. I mean, the whole temple worship was extremely disciplined. B'oto yom, and that particular day, tzarich rachamim b'ichud, this day where it talks about ma'eret, right? One needs a special praying for supplication, especially al machalat ha'askara, and regarding the illness of croup, one needs a special prayer and concentration. Mishum de'amru, and the reason they said, and this is really interesting, in Tractate Shabbat, on page 33a, Askara Ba'a, the reason that croup occurs al avon regarding the sin of Lashon Hara, regarding the sin of evil talk. And we know how invidious Lashon Hara is, and how easy it is to engage in it, in bad mouthing somebody else. Anytime you're complaining, we're going to see the reason why Dafka Lashon Hara, that particular sin. Uvayom Harevi'i, because on Wednesday, which is the day, as I said, that God created the luminaries, Haya Avon Harishon, the very first time the sin of Lashon Hara took place, Le Lashon Hara, that's the abbreviation, Pazeh Shiragna Halavana, in the fact that the moon complained bitterly, Al Hachama, regarding the sun. She complained about the sun. Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, before the Holy One, Besabihi, and this is the complaint. Ifshar lishnei malachim, you created us two large luminaries. It is impossible for two kings sheyishtamshu beketer echad, that they should be able to use one crown. Two kings cannot use one crown. In other words, someone has to have more authority than the other person. As yavo lefanenu lekaman pasuk tetzayin, as we will see when we get to verse 16 of Genesis chapter 1, and we'll see. So this sort of also has a great implication regarding complaining in general, that when your heart is filled with a sense of complaining, the temptation then to possibly go beyond simply complaining in a general sense to Lashon Hara is very, very tempting. It's very strong. Yes, Golda,
Who gets the croup?
the
Because
baby.
we assume croup is a children's
It is.
madly,
It's an infant. It's an infant
malady.
disease. Yes. So you know that it's a bracha that you say at the bar mitzvah, you know, which basically says, Shepatrani me onshor shel zeh, the one who has absolved me of the punishment due this one. And again, this is a realization just how much our souls are bound up in one another. And so even though we do say, the fathers are not to, the fathers have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. But basically, it's saying that at that very, very early age, and the degree of nurturing that we need to do, that there may well be implications. So I do think they say tinokot. They do say infants, and he already mentioned it. So yes,
I got an idea.
yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. And I know you love to argue my ideas. So
Okay.
maybe it's the parents who are doing Lashon Hara and the
Oh
croup
yeah,
is being sent because the to punish the parents, not the child. But
Well, I
you know.
agree. I agree.
Oh, okay.
I agree. No, it's we're not talking about infants engaging in Lashon Hara.
Right.
We're talking
Okay.
about the parents. And of course, as a parent, losing a child is the greatest pain you might ever feel. You know, it's devastating.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The croupy, I mean, croupy kids are croupy kids. I mean, it's going to
Right.
happen. But to
Right.
go around and hear that he's his, can you imagine
Well, we're not allowed to do that.
everybody walking
Yeah.
around saying his kids got croup. So you know what that means.
No, you know, that's a false logical result.
Okay.
Okay. Something can imply something else. If A implies B, it does not mean B implies A. Okay. It simply means that you cannot have A and not B if A implies B. All right. But because somebody is experiencing that doesn't give you any right to say, oh, the reason why their child has croup is because they are committing Lashon Hara. That's
That's
not
Lashon Hara right
in
back.
itself, correct. That's
Right.
Lashon Hara squared. Yes, it is.
Yes.
But I think what it's trying to say, this all has to do with, having a mature relationship with a divine creator. And this is part of the implication of when we use this term Elohim, when we use that term to describe our relationship with God. That when we say Adonai Eloheinu, we accept divine judgment and divine justice, even though it is a very painful thing at times. But to be able to acknowledge that is a great act of faith. And that's truly saying Adonai Eloheinu. So recognizing that this may have happened, God forbid, to your child, and saying, wait a second, what do I learn from this? What do I need to do? How do I need to change my life in a very profound kind of way? And the other piece is, I am absolutely convinced at this point, because all those laws regarding ritual purity, as well as the sacrifices, but mainly ritual purity, I am convinced have to do with the fact that our tradition is saying we have immortality. So yes, these babies have passed on, but their souls have not been destroyed. And the truth is that we all eventually have to face what we call the Grim Reaper. We all have to do that. But it is tragic. There's no, and I don't believe our tradition is trying to lessen the tragedy. I think what we really need to understand is how serious Lashon Hara is. That's the problem, is we don't consider Lashon Hara very serious. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So keep going. Let's see here. Okay. Uvachamishi, and on Thursday, hayu mitanin al ha'me'ubarot, they would then fast regarding the pregnant women. Shelot tapelna, that they shouldn't lose their child. They shouldn't lose the fetus. For al hamenikot, and regarding nursing women, shelo yamutu b'neihem, that their children should not die. Al Shem dichtiv, and why? There's a verse, of course, to support this, okay, regarding sheyishritzu hamayim sheretz nefesh chaya. It says, let the waters teem with living creatures. So, water, pregnancy, right? The amniotic fluid, and also water regarding milk, right? Lactating. So, I think, honestly, I find this really profoundly beautiful as to how concerned there was, and how much they felt a need to care for one another and pray for their welfare. And it's so different from some of the things we're going through right now. What I'll do is I'll take a look, because it's getting on in time, but let's just take a look at the next verse, and I'll pull this down here. Betoch hamayim, in the midst of the waters. Amar Rabbi Bun, said Rabbi, his name was Bun. Sorry. I'm trying to read this. Oh, Yehi, let there be Rakia betoch hamayim, that when it says, let there be a firmament in the midst of the water, Yehi Rakia batavech, I think is what he's saying. He's saying, let this Rakia be in the very middle of it. The word betoch sometimes can simply mean in other words, or within. And Rabbi Bun is coming to say, no, what this is talking about is in the very middle of it, that this is where the Rakia should be. And we will take a look at the Torah Temimah with God's help next week. So.